Hey guys, tonight we step into a world where the snow never truly melts, where the air bites harder than wolves, and where your only defense against winter's fury is a thin cloak, a smoky hearth, and whatever scraps of warmth you can scrape together. You're standing on frozen earth in a crumbling wattle and daub hut, wind howling through cracks. You can never quite patch smoke curling into your eyes because there's no chimney, just a hole in the roof that keeps freezing shut. Your feet are bare. The floor is dirt. And the cold, it's not just in the air. It's in your bones, your breath, your very blood. You're a medieval peasant, and it's the dead of winter. And no, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I love seeing how far this little community reaches. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice as winter settles over your medieval village isn't the snow. It's the silence. The world goes quiet when the last leaves fall and the last beasts are butchered. Birds have flown south. The fields have been cleared. The streams begin to harden under brittle skins of ice. Even the trees stop whispering. What you're left with is a kind of aching stillness. And in that stillness, hunger starts its slow crawl. You've worked hard through the autumn, harder than most modern people could even imagine. Every daylight hour was spent harvesting, drying, salting, storing. There are no refrigerators. There's no grocery store waiting down the road. Everything you'll eat for the next 4 or 5 months must already be in your possession. And that food, it's meager. You're not nobility. You don't dine on boar and buttery pies. You've got sacks of barley, maybe some rye, a few onions, a slab of dried salt pork hanging from a beam, and if you're lucky, a single round of hard cheese so aged it could double as a weapon. Every item has to last. Every morsel has to be stretched, diluted, repurposed. Waste nothing. Because once it's gone, it's gone. And the famine will come not in December, but in March, when your stores are low, and spring is still just a cruel rumor whispered on the wind. The sun sets early now, 4 o'clock maybe. Darkness presses in from all sides. Your only light comes from a fire fed with wood you spent all summer chopping. It's your greatest treasure. Fire means life. Without it, your family would freeze before midnight. You cluster close to it, so close that your skin starts to dry and crack, but not close enough to burn the rationed logs too quickly. There's smoke in your eyes again. No matter how you angle the fire, no matter how you stack the peat bricks, the smoke always finds you. It curls into your nostrils, settles in your hair, clings to your clothes. Your hut stinks of it. But you stop noticing after a while. You've stopped noticed a lot of things, like how your clothes haven't been washed in weeks, maybe months. You own a single wool tunic, maybe 2 if you're fortunate. It's thick, scratchy, stained with grease from the hearth, and stiff with repeated wear. You have no soap, only lye, and maybe some crushed herbs. Laundry requires water. And water this time of year is frozen solid unless you melt it over the fire. So you stay dirty. Everyone does. You sleep in your clothes. You work in your clothes. You'll be buried in your clothes. If you have boots, they're made of rough leather, patched so many times they resemble Frankenstein's monster more than footwear. More likely, you have none at all. Your feet are wrapped in rags and stuffed into clogs which offer about as much protection as soggy cardboard. Frostbite is common. You know at least one person in your village who's lost toes. Your children huddle together under a single sheepskin. You don't have proper bedding, just straw strewn over the floor, and maybe some animal pelts. The straw smells faintly of mildew and piss. You try not to think about it. You tell stories instead, old folk tales and saints' lives and fragments of whatever Latin phrases the village priest muttered last Sunday. You don't know how to read, but you remember words. And in this endless dark stories are a form of heat. The cold does something strange to time. Days feel longer because of how little you can do. The ground is frozen. There's no farming. No fishing unless you risk cracking the river's ice and falling in. The animals are mostly slaughtered, their hides tanned and their meat salted. What remains are chores, mending tools, spinning wool, tending to the fire, patching holes in your roof. But these are small tasks. Hours creep by. The same silence, the same walls, the same faces. If illness strikes, and it often does, you have no doctor to call. No hospitals. Only the wise woman down the lane with her dried herbs, or the prayers offered by the village priest. Winter sickness is feared more than wolves. Fevers, coughing, fits, abscessed teeth, or even a cut that refuses to close can become fatal in this season. The body weakens when food is scarce and the cold is constant. And the body is always weakening. You notice it in your father's breath as it rattles deeper each night. In your mother's hands which shake now as she stirs the gruel. In your own hunger which no longer comes in waves but sits in your stomach like a stone. You're constantly tired. Your limbs feel heavy. You're cold even when sitting beside the fire. You begin to dream of warm places even as the wind howls outside. You try not to think about the graves behind the chapel. Last winter, 3 children died. 2 old women. 1 man who went out to check his traps and never came back. They found him in the spring, half buried in snow, mouth open in a final scream. This is just how it is. No one complains. There's no one to complain to. This is your life. Your grandfather lived it. Your children will live it. The winter always comes, and you survive it or you don't. And still, there are moments of comfort. A bowl of warm pottage after a long day. The way your daughter laughs when she chases a snowflake through the cracks in the door. The sudden warmth when the dog curls against your feet. The sound of someone singing quietly while spinning wool, low, tuneless, but familiar. These things matter. They hold you together. They help you survive. And that's how the winter begins, not with a blizzard, not with a battle, but with a slow surrender. A yielding to routine, to hunger, to the rhythm of survival. You learn to listen to the wind, to ration the firewood, to recognize which cough means danger and which doesn't. You become part of the winter, a creature of frost and ash and breath. And as you lie down in the dark, wrapped in scratchy wool and old sheepskin, you close your eyes, not expecting comfort, but knowing you've done enough for one more day. You made it through today, and maybe, just maybe, you'll make it through tomorrow. The frost doesn't relent. In fact, by now it's stronger than ever, pressing its invisible hands against the walls of your cottage, prying at the edges of the door, creeping under every seam of your garments. You wake before dawn, if you even slept at all. The night was long, too long. The fire died hours ago. You dreamt of being warm again, but now your teeth chatter in rhythm with the cold wind howling through the trees outside. The day hasn't started yet, already you're behind. You reach for the embers, praying some orange glow still hides under the ash. If it's gone cold, you'll have to beg a hot coal from your neighbor. And in this weather, no one parts with fire easily. Fire is life. Fire is food. Fire is protection from death. You blow gently. A flicker. Relief. You feed it slivers of bark pine needles, dry moss, slowly, carefully coaxing it back to life like a child awakening from sleep. Smoke snakes toward the ceiling again, and the warmth creeps back into your fingers barely. There's no coffee, no breakfast in bed. Your first meal of the day is a bowl of thin gruel barley, or oats boiled in water, maybe with a splash of goat's milk if your animal survived the frost. No sugar, no salt. The porridge is gray and tasteless, but it's warm and that's enough. You eat slowly, drawing out each spoonful, watching your breath curl like steam above the bowl. Then the work begins. You head outside. The cold hits you like a slap. It robs. Your breath stings your cheeks, turns your hands red and stiff. Everything is white sky, white trees, white fields. You squint through the brightness. There's a thin crust of snow over the land, but it's deceptive. Beneath it lies frozen earth, and you know the work ahead won't be any easier than in summer, just quieter, lonelier, and cruel in a different way. The village is quiet. Smoke rises from a few chimneys. No birds sing, no dogs bark. Every sound is muffled by snow. Your boots crunch in rhythm as you walk toward the woods. If you don't gather firewood, the fire will die again tonight. You carry a hatchet, its wooden handle worn smooth by years of use. Cutting wood in winter is exhausting. Each swing drains your strength. Your breath fogs your vision. The axe bites into frozen bark with a dull thud. The log shudders but holds. You strike again. Again. Your arms ache, but you keep swinging. Because there is no choice. Warmth or death, that's the equation, simple and merciless. When the wood is split, you bundle it together, lash it with rope, and drag it back across the snow. Every step is a burden. The sled digs into the ground. Your back screams, but you press on. There's no reward waiting, only the knowledge that tonight your family might be warm. And this is just one task. The animals need checking. You have no real barn, only a lean-to structure with straw flooring and rough walls. The goats huddle together for warmth. They bleat when you arrive hungry and miserable. You toss them dried hay and clear the frozen dung from their corners. One goat limps, frostbite maybe. You whisper to it gently. It's strange how much comfort can come from one living creature's gaze. You check your traps next. Small game is rare this time of year, but you're desperate. A single rabbit could mean stew tonight. You find one snare disturbed but empty, and two others undisturbed, the bait untouched. The fourth blessedly holds a scrawny hare. You nearly cry. It's not much, but it's meat. You tuck it inside your coat, its lifeless body still warm. The guilt is there, yes, but it's dwarfed by hunger. Back home, your wife kneads dough beside the hearth. Not bread, there's not enough flour. It's a flat cake of barley and water cooked on a stone near the fire. It smells faintly of smoke and ash. You'll eat it with onion, maybe with a sliver of salted pork if it's a special day. But not today. Today the meat is saved for someone sick. The rabbit will stretch over 2 meals if you boil it well and thicken the broth with root vegetables. A turnip, an old carrot, a sprig of dried thyme hung from the rafters. There's no luxury here, but there's ingenuity. You've learned how to make flavor from almost nothing. That's what winter survival is, creativity born from desperation. Your children huddle close to the fire. They're quieter now, thinner. They no longer beg for toys or treats. Their world has narrowed. They help where they can, spinning wool, fetching water, grinding grain with a stone mortar, but they tire quickly. You worry about them. A cough, a fever, a chill that won't go away. These things can steal a child in a single night. You've known loss before. A brother taken by pneumonia. A sister who froze after slipping on the ice and falling into a stream. That was 3 winters ago, and the memory still haunts you. Grief is heavy, but it has no time to settle. There is always more to do. At dusk you light a tallow candle. The flame wavers, casting shadows on the cottage walls. You count the logs left in your pile, only 12. They need to last at least 4 days. You do the math in your head, fingers twitching with anxiety. 1 log at a time, stretched as far as it will go. Night descends quickly, wrapping the village in a deep, suffocating black. The stars are brilliant cold pinpricks in a velvet sky. You close the shutters, stuff rags into the gaps to keep the wind out, and huddle with your family. The stew simmers. The smell of rabbit fills the air, warm and comforting. You say a quiet prayer, more from habit than hope, and offer the first bowl to the eldest. That's tradition. Elders first, then children. You eat last. The stew is thin, but it's hot and it warms your belly. You savor every bite. You chew slowly. You imagine you're in a castle feasting like a lord. It's a lie, but a soothing one. Your children laugh at something small and silly, and for a moment the hut feels full of light. You sit near the fire, stroking your beard, staring at the embers. You think of spring. You think of green fields and thawed rivers and the first songbirds returning. But you don't dare speak of it. Not yet. Winter still has its grip on you. Hope must be rationed, too. You lie down on the straw bed, wrapped in blankets, stitched from old wool, patched so many times you've lost count. The roof groans under the weight of snow. An icicle shatters outside, hitting the ground with a sharp crack. You pull your youngest child closer, sharing your body heat. Their breath is soft against your chest. And you whisper something, maybe a story, maybe a hymn, maybe nothing at all. Just sound, just presence, just proof that you're still here. Because in a world this cold, that's the most sacred thing of all. By the 3rd week of wintertime, no longer moves in days, it moves in firewood. You don't say it's Wednesday. You say, we have 5 logs left. You don't plan tomorrow around the sun or saints' feast days, but around whether the hut can stay warm until morning. Time is measured in heat, in food, in breath, and your breath, even indoors, still hangs in the air. White, visible, a reminder that the cold is always there, just inches away, waiting. You sleep light, wake often. Every rustle in the wind sounds like the roof might give way. Every creak of timber makes you listen hard in the dark. You don't trust anything anymore, not the structure of your home, not the weather, and certainly not luck. Today, the snow is falling again, fine, dry, relentless. It covers everything like a slow-moving tide, and you know this means one thing: more isolation. The narrow paths between cottages become impassable. The small track that leads to the next village will vanish by nightfall. Travel is no longer just dangerous, it's impossible. And so your world shrinks further. Inside, the smoke from the hearth clings thicker. The soot on the rafters grows. Everything is layered in ash. You've long since stopped minding the constant grit between your teeth. Breathing hurts sometimes, especially for the old. You hear your grandfather's cough, a deep scraping sound, like boots dragging through gravel. He won't say a word about it. Neither will you. You all pretend not to notice. That's what you do in winter. You pretend. There's no work in the fields, so you work with your hands. Mending, repairing, making do. You take an old tunic threadbare and torn, and try to stitch the holes shut again. You're not skilled with a needle, but every layer counts. You rub lard along your cracked fingers so the skin won't split open as you sew. Blood stains wool faster than you'd think. Your wife is spinning wool by the fire. The thread is uneven, but it's thread nonetheless. You'll knit mittens maybe, or try to patch the holes in your socks. Or twist the yarn into cord tough and rough to lash tools or tie bundles of herbs. Nothing is wasted, not in winter. Even your own breath is precious, because it might be the only warmth you have left. You haven't seen the sun in 4 days. The sky stays white and the light is dim even at midday. The chickens haven't laid eggs in weeks. They huddle together in a corner of the hut, more pets now than livestock. Their feathers are dull. One has a broken leg. You don't mention it. The children like them too much. And besides, the meat is barely worth it. Lunch, if you can call it that, is bread and water. The bread is black, dense, and hard as a stone, made from rye and barley with crushed beans and bits of chaff to stretch the flour. You soak it in hot water to soften it. It swells a little, tastes of ashes and earth, but it fills your belly just enough to stop the ache. You listen, always listening, for sounds of danger, of collapse, of predators, of other people. Not everyone who walks in the snow is a friend. Sometimes in the hardest winters, men have turned on each other. You've heard stories. Starving villagers who raided neighbors' cellars, children gone missing, fires set deliberately to force a family out. You pray it never comes to that. But prayer is only so thick a shield. Instead, you put your faith in habit. You wake. You eat. You work. You mend. You eat again. You sleep. You repeat. It's the rhythm of survival. It's not hope exactly, but it's a kind of music. And if you stop moving to that rhythm, everything collapses. You send your eldest son outside to clear the roof. The snow has built too high. One wrong gust could bring the rafters down. He doesn't want to saw to go. His face is thin and his hands shake as he fastens his cloak. But he does it anyway, climbing up with a makeshift shovel. You watch through the slit in the wall. Each push of snow seems to take hours. You chew your lip. He's too skinny. Everyone is. When he finally comes down, you press a warm cup of broth into his hands and thank him. You say the words even if you feel nothing. Sometimes kindness is just another part of survival. The broth is a miracle. Boiled bones from the rabbit you caught 2 days ago. Just the bones really, with water and some garlic if you have it. Maybe a few leaves of dried cabbage. Maybe a scrap of dried mushroom. It tastes like memory, and it keeps you alive. You sit near the fire and tell stories again. Old ones, pagan ones, Christian ones. No one remembers where they came from anymore. You tell of wolves that speak and saints who raise the dead, of witches who ride the wind and spirits that knock on shutters during storms. Your youngest clutches your sleeve and listens wide-eyed. You don't tell them which parts are real, because sometimes even you aren't sure. The animals in the forest are starving too. A few nights ago, you heard howling not far from the edge of the trees. Wolves. You've heard of them before, of course. But to hear them so close, that's rare. That's bad. They're hungrier than usual. Desperate. You keep the goat closer to the hut. You hang bones on a string near the path, hoping the smell will lead them elsewhere. You sharpen your knife just in case. The wind is cruel tonight. It whistles through the smallest holes. You stuff rags in the doorframe, heap hay along the base of the walls, anything to stop the draft. You even hang wet cloths in front of the coldest cracks, frozen within hours, but still better than nothing. Someone knocks at your door. You freeze. Everyone does. It's late. No one visits at night. You open it slowly. It's your neighbor's boy. His father fell while chopping wood, hurt his leg, can't stand. They need help lifting him. You nod. You bundle yourself and go. That's what you do here. You help even when it's dangerous. Because when your time comes, you'll need someone to help you too. You find the man groaning on the snow, pale as death. You and two others carry him inside. His leg is twisted, broken. There's no doctor, only the village elder and a splint of wood. You wince as you tie it in place. He screams. You don't look away. They thank you. Offer a mug of heated cider, thinned down and weak but warm. You sit for a moment, thawing, breathing, sharing silence with people who understand the weight of winter as well as you do. Then you walk home again, through the snow, through the cold, and when you crawl back inside your hut, the fire is still glowing. And so are you, just a little, because you did something that mattered. The days drag on, and by now, your very thoughts feel frostbitten. Each morning begins the same, with the slow, painful rise from a bed of straw and aching limbs, your joints stiff from the damp cold, your breath misting before your eyes like a ghost refusing to leave. You glance out through the narrow shutter, but the world beyond hasn't changed. The sky still hangs low and gray like wool soaked in sorrow. The trees still stand stripped and still. The ground, hard as stone, offers nothing. But inside you move, because you must. Winter doesn't care about your fatigue. It doesn't slow for grief or give pause for weariness. It continues. And so do you. The fire is low again. You poke at it with a stick, stir. The embers add a small log, just one. Always just one. You can't afford to burn two at once. Not now. There are too many weeks ahead, and your pile grows lighter. You count it each day without wanting to. This morning you check your stores. You lift the lid of the salted barrel. The pork is low, just a few slabs left submerged in brine that smells sharp and sour. You take none. Not today. You open the bag of rye and barley, less than you remembered. You frown. The kids have been hungry lately. You've likely been adding more to the gruel without noticing. You'll need to watch that. You open the cheesecloth-wrapped bundle in the corner onions. Small softening. A few have already sprouted green tendrils in the dark. You'll slice those first, boil them down, turn them into soup that smells far richer than it tastes. Illusion helps the appetite, and helps the, Still, it's not enough. Your stomach knots with worry. If the stores shrink faster than the winter, you won't make it to the thaw. That's the real game of survival, not just enduring the cold, but outlasting the emptiness. You begin calculating again how many cups of grain left, how many meals you can stretch from bones and broth, how many onions must last until spring, and always how many mouths you must feed. You decide to visit the old woman who lives at the edge of the woods, a healer of sorts, a widow wrapped in mystery and herbs, with eyes like river stones, and breath that smells of garlic and smoke. Some say she talks to spirits. Others say she once cured a boy who coughed up blood for a week. All you know is that she knows things, especially things that grow under snow. The walk is quiet. Your boots crunch softly in the snow, and you keep one hand tucked into your cloak to clutch your knife just in case. Not because of her, because of the forest. Because of hunger, yours and everything else's. Her hut is small and leaning. Smoke spills lazily from the chimney, and strange bundles of dried herbs hang from the eaves. You knock. She opens the door with a nod, no surprise in her expression. She always seems to know who's coming. She says nothing, just gestures you in. The inside smells of dried sage pine resin and something bitter you can't name. You explain your trouble. She listens. Then she pulls down a bundle of dried roots, burdock, she says. Good for broth. Helps clean the blood. Fills the belly. She hands you a small pouch of dried mushrooms, too black and shriveled, but edible. Add them to the pot, she says. They'll stretch the stew. You offer her a small wool scarf in return, one your daughter had been weaving but never finished. She takes it, touches the frayed ends and smiles. Fair trade, she mutters. Outside again, the wind stings your cheeks. But you feel a little stronger. Not because of the mushrooms, because someone helped. Because you traded, bartered, shared. In a winter like this, kindness is currency. You pass the chapel on your way back. The wooden doors are closed, frost feathering the edges. The bell hasn't rung in weeks, not since the priest took sick and stopped holding mass. Still, people light candles on the stone ledge near the entrance. You add one of your own. Say nothing. Just leave the flame flickering and walk on. It's enough. Back at home, the children are awake. They're restless today, stir-crazy from being trapped inside too long. Your son has carved a small toy horse from firewood scraps. It has no legs, just a blocky body and a scratched face, but he cradles it like treasure. Your daughter hums softly as she braids a cord of flax. Her fingers are red and raw. You wrap her hands gently in cloth warmed near the hearth. Then you start the stew. Into the pot goes everything you've got. Onion grain, a piece of pork rind for flavor, and the mushrooms from the healer's pouch. You slice the burdock root thin, watch it swell as the broth warms. The smell fills the hut. Your wife sighs quietly, the first sound of relief you've heard in days. The stew takes hours. You let it. Because the warmth of waiting is better than the cold of being done. As it simmers, you sit with your family. Not speaking much, just being. Listening to the fire crackle, the wind howl. Your wife mends a blanket. Your eldest sharpens a blade. You close your eyes, not asleep, just resting, letting the rhythm of survival carry you for a while. When the stew is finally ready, you eat in silence. It's good, better than you expected. The mushrooms give it depth. The onion sweetens it. You all eat slowly, each bite a small victory. No one asks for more than their share. Even the children know the rules by now. After dinner, you speak again, this time softly, telling stories of when you were a child. Of winters that seemed worse than this, though maybe they weren't. Of the time your father built a sled from a broken wheel and dragged you through the snow. Of how your mother would sing when she stirred the pot, even when there was nothing in it but water and hope. Your wife smiles. Your children giggle. Your own eyes sting, but not from smoke. Night falls again. The wind rattles the shutters like an impatient guest. You add one more log to the fire. Just one. Then you settle in, wrapped in old wool and fresh memory. And somewhere far above the storm clouds, the stars burn silently, distant, cold, and constant. Just like winter. Just like you. Somewhere between hunger and frostbite, life goes on. Not in the way you might think, not with comfort or celebration, but with stubborn repetition. One foot in front of the other. One day giving way to the next. Winter tries to grind you down, but you become stone-worn, yes, but not broken. This morning, you wake to silence again. But this time, it's different. You notice it immediately, the strange stillness in the air. Not the normal quiet of a sleeping village, but a deep, muffled silence. Too still, too soft. You press your hand to the door and feel it, the weight of snow piled against the outside. It's trapped you in. You push. Nothing. You brace your shoulder grunt against the weight. Finally, the door groans open a crack just wide enough to let in a fine spray of cold powder. Snow chest deep and thick as wool has blanketed everything in the night. A drift blown against your hut. You stand staring at it, your breath catching in your throat. It's beautiful, yes, but deadly. Because now you can't get out. Not easily. And if something happens, if you need help, food, water, or firewood, you'll have to dig for it, with bare hands if necessary. You grab the shovel, such as it is, just a flat wooden board lashed to a stick, and begin carving a narrow path from your door to the yard. The snow is light, but deep. It takes hours. Your arms scream. Your feet are numb despite the rags wrapped around them. But you keep going, a narrow trench forming through the snow like a lifeline. Finally, the doorway is clear again. You call your son to help clear the roof again. The weight of snow is dangerous, heavier than it looks. Too much, and the whole thing could collapse. You don't say it out loud, but you don't need to. He knows. Up he goes, careful, slow. You hold your breath with every step. The snow falls in sheets as he pushes it off the thatch. The roof creaks, but holds. You exhale. Inside, your wife is boiling water. Not for food, just water. Warmth. Comfort. A bucket of heat to hold against your chest. You pass it around like a holy relic. It steams against your skin, fogging your face. For a few minutes, it almost feels like bathing. You haven't bathed in weeks. There's no such thing as bathing in winter. There's only wiping with cloths, scraping your nails, brushing your teeth with twigs. Anything more would require heat. You can't spare water. You can't melt fast enough time you don't have. And still you try, a little at a time. You boil a rag, clean your face. You let the steam open your pores. You wash your children's feet, not for hygiene, but to keep them from cracking. Your wife trims your beard with a sharp shell. You do hers with a bone comb. It's not beauty, it's survival. Afterward, you gather pine needles from the bundle hanging above the hearth. You crumble them into a pot of boiling water and let the scent fill the hut. Pine. Clean, sharp, bright. It reminds you of spring, of sap running through trees of color. You almost forget for a moment that the world outside is white and dead. But it always comes back. You sit by the fire sharpening tools, the scythe, the skinning knife, the spade. You won't need them yet, not until thaw, but winter is the best time for edge work. Your hands are steady and the quiet lets you focus. You run the whetstone slow and sure, listening to the rasp, over and over. Beside you, your wife is spinning flax again. The spindle twirls hypnotic. She sings low and soft, the same 3 lines of a song she's known since childhood. The children hum along. They don't know what the words mean. Maybe she doesn't either. But the melody is warmth, familiar, rhythmic, safe. Then, as if to break the spell, you hear something outside. Not wind, not wolves. Voices. You freeze. Everyone does. The fire crackles, the only sound in the room. You press your finger to your lips, motion toward the door. You grab the knife not with panic, but with caution. Not everyone who comes calling in winter does so with good intent. But when you crack the door and peer out, relief floods your chest. It's Tom and his eldest from the next cottage down. They've come to check on you, see if you need wood, if you've heard about old Marta, who took ill, if the path to the stream is still open. You smile for the first time all day. You invite them in, share the pine water, exchange news. Marta's fever broke, thank God. Her grandson is catching trout through a hole in the ice. He's caught 3 in 2 days, small but fresh. They might trade one if you have anything left to barter. You think, the burdock root, the extra fire poker you fashioned last month. Maybe even the pine needle's freshness is hard to come by. After they leave, you sit in silence again. But it feels different now. Less like loneliness, more like rest. The sky darkens early again. You stoke the fire and open the small hole in the roof for the smoke to rise. It's clogged with ice. You use a stick to poke it open, a trick you learned from your father. It works. The smoke rises again, thin and blue. Supper is barley mush with a single turnip shaved into curls. You salt it lightly, close your eyes, and pretend it's stew. The kids believe you when you say it tastes just like feast day soup. Maybe you even believe yourself. Afterward, you all sit close to the hearth. The wind has picked up again. It scratches the walls, whispers through the gaps, shakes the thatch. You tell a story to keep the children calm. One about a knight who wandered into a snowstorm and found a cave where fire grew out of the rocks. You embellish the details. Make the snow sound less cruel. Make the cold seem like a test, not a punishment. They listen wide-eyed, clinging to every word. The wind moans again outside, and your daughter clutches your arm. You hold her close. You're safe, you whisper, even if you're not sure it's true. Because that's what winter requires of you, not certainty, not courage, just the willingness to pretend a little longer. To believe that warmth will come back, that this endless cold will break, that you can keep going one story, one breath, one fire-lit night at a time. The wind howls louder, but you hum your wife's song under your breath, and the fire still burns. The sound of the wind becomes a companion now, sometimes cruel, sometimes mournful, but always there. You stop reacting to it. It's just another voice in the chorus of winter, like the creaking rafters, the coughing in the next room, the hiss of steam rising from the pot. It sings to you in a language of ice and breath, a lullaby if you're desperate enough to believe it. Today begins with a kind of numbness, not just in your fingers or toes, though those are always on the edge of frost. This numbness goes deeper. It sits in your chest. You've been inside too long. The world has narrowed to 4 wooden walls and a horizon of white. Your thoughts, like your body, start to stiffen. So you go outside. Not for any real purpose, you're out of traps to check, and the woodpile is nearly gone, but because your spirit needs to move or it might curl up and die. The air is sharp. It bites your cheeks and makes your eyes water instantly. You breathe shallow, careful not to draw too much ice into your lungs. The snow groans under your boots. You walk slowly past the goat hutch, past the frozen barrels that once caught rainwater. Everything is silent. The trees stand like monks in prayer. You keep walking. Eventually you reach the stream, or what used to be a stream. Now it's just a seam of white hiding water that moves silently beneath a shell of ice. You crouch, brush back the snow chip at the edge. There it is, still flowing beneath it all. Cold, clear, alive. You fill a jug and watch the surface seal behind you, like a wound closing. Then you just sit. Let the cold creep into your bones. It's miserable, but it's honest. And somehow that feels better than the smoke-filled hut and the endless sound of children shifting restlessly in their sleep. When you return home, your wife looks at you strangely. She can see it, the glaze in your eyes, the weariness in your shoulders. She says nothing. just hands you a bowl of soup, thin again. Bits of carrot this time. You nod thanks, though you don't taste it. You eat because the motion matters. Then something remarkable happens. Your neighbor returns with a fish. Not a rumor of one, not a trade offered in exchange for firewood. An actual, real, slippery, silver-scaled fish. It glistens in the dim light like a miracle. He caught it this morning from the same stream you just visited. He grins, and for the first time in weeks, you remember what a full smile looks like. He offers it to you. Just like that. You shake your head. No, you say. You need it more. But he insists. We had two. One is enough for today. You want to refuse again. You don't want to owe anyone. You don't want to take from someone who has just as little. But he's already walking away. And so you stand there holding a fish. And you cry. You don't sob. There are no gasps or wails. Just a quiet leak of tears that catch you off guard, steaming down your cheeks before you realize they're there. Not from sadness. Not entirely from gratitude either. Just from the overwhelming strangeness of being given something that wasn't demanded, traded, or scraped together. A gift. You clean the fish carefully. You gut it, scale it, save every edible part. The bones will be boiled for broth, the head for stock. Nothing wasted. Not ever. You let your children watch, and they're wide-eyed reverent, as though you're carving gold. When the fish is cooked, it smells like a memory from a dream. The meat is tender, flaky, hot. You divide it precisely, no favoritism, just fairness, a piece for each. A moment of silence. Then you all eat. And the silence is broken only by chewing and sighs of relief. It feels like communion. Sacred. You don't need candles or bells to know you've been blessed. That night, as the wind wails again outside you and your wife stay up longer than usual, not talking, just sitting, shoulders touching, watching the last few coals glow in the hearth. She leans into you. You close your eyes, and you let yourself imagine spring. Not foolishly, not like a child dreaming of warmth and flowers, but with precision. You imagine what the thaw will look like, the way the snow will recede patch by patch, the first shoots of grass poking through brown soil, the muddy tracks in the yard, the chickens clucking louder, the sun climbing higher in the sky each day. You imagine planting again, calloused hands pressing seeds into dirt, not for beauty, for survival, the way you always have. But tonight it feels closer, not near, but not unreachable either. Spring is a horizon now, not a myth. And you tell yourself softly, so no one else can hear it, that you might just make it. You rise early the next day before the others. The fire's out again. You kneel, stir the ashes, and begin the process all over. Spark, ember, smoke. You breathe into the coals, and they answer. The frost is thick this morning, thicker than you've seen all season. The windows are laced with curling crystals, a delicate pattern that almost looks like art. Beautiful in the way danger sometimes is. You run your fingers along the wooden shutter, and they come away wet, then instantly dry again from the bite of the air. You wake your children gently. Their hair is damp with sweat from sleeping too close to the fire, even though the hut itself feels no warmer than a cave. They stir slowly, blinking against the dim gray light. No complaints, just movement. They've learned without being told that energy is a precious thing. Every gesture, every step, every word carries a cost. Today you're going to the communal oven. It's a weekly event, one of the few constants in a life otherwise ruled by weather and chance. Most homes can't afford to burn enough wood to bake bread on their own, so your village has one large oven, a dome of clay and stone warmed for hours before the bread goes in. Everyone takes turns. Today it's yours. Your wife wraps the loaves in linen. They're heavy with barley and bits of dried pea flour, dense and flat, not the fluffy, fragrant loaves of feast days. But they'll keep. You tie the bundle to your back and step out into the snow. It's a short walk, but even short walks feel long in deep winter. You pass the same cottages, the same thin smoke rising. Everyone is still alive. That's something. You nod to the blacksmith who's hammering slowly in his lean-to, more out of rhythm than necessity. A mother waves from her doorway, holding a baby wrapped in 3 layers of linen. She looks tired, but she smiles. The oven stands in the center of the village, its chimney yawning smoke. A few others are already there, huddled close, warming their hands. You greet them. No need for names. In winter, everyone becomes one thing: hungry, cold, waiting. You place your loaves in the embers, mark your spot with a small stone, and sit on a bench with the others. No one speaks at first. The silence is heavy but not unfriendly. Just shared. Someone pulls out a pipe, lights it, passes it along. The smell is sharp, woody, oddly comforting. You take a few puffs. It doesn't warm you, but it distracts you, which is enough. Then someone breaks the silence. Old Jorah's boy came back from the abbey. You look up, that's news. He's studying Latin now. Said they let him stay the whole winter. Didn't want him walking back through the woods. Smart, someone mutters. Better than freezing on the road. There's a beat of quiet. Then someone else says, "You think they'll teach him to write?" You shrug, if he's lucky. Writing. A strange magic to most of you. Letters that turn sound into symbols. You've seen it only rarely on parchment held by the priest, or markings carved into wood by wandering scribes. You don't need it, you've told yourself. Not to plant, not to harvest, not to survive. But a part of you wonders what it would be like to write your name, to put something of yourself into the world that would last longer than firewood and breath. The oven keeper calls you over. Your bread is done. You lift the loaves, still warm, hard to the touch, but heavy in the way good bread should be. You wrap them again, tie them close, and nod your thanks. Before heading home, you pause. You look at the sky, pale blue, almost white. No snow today. Maybe not tomorrow either. A brief pause in the storm. You take the long way back. Not because it's easier, because you want to remember what the world looks like under the frost. The trees wear coats of silver. The path is packed with footprints frozen into the earth like fossils. A raven sits on a branch watching you with eyes too clever for a bird. You nod at it, half joking, half serious. It doesn't blink. Back home, your children cheer when they see the bread. It's not sweet. It's not soft. But it's warm. And it smells like life. You cut the loaf with care. Thin slices for everyone. A bit of goose fat smeared on top. Maybe a pinch of salt if you're feeling generous. The crust is hard, but the center is soft. Steam curls upward. It's the best thing you've eaten all week. After lunch, you rest. Not sleep, just sit. Watch the fire. Sharpen a knife. Mend a crack in the doorframe. You catch your wife humming again. The same tune. Maybe she hums because it's the only thing she can control. Maybe because it keeps the silence from swallowing her whole. You hum with her. As evening falls, the temperature drops again. You hear the familiar groan of the wind circling your hut, sniffing at every weak point. The shutters rattle, the rafters creak. But the fire is strong tonight. You've stacked the logs with confidence, 3 of them. An indulgence, but worth it. You tell another story. This one about a baker who fooled the king by baking stones that looked like meat pies. The king ate 3 before realizing. Everyone laughs, even the teenager who hasn't smiled in days. Your youngest asks if it's true. You pause. Maybe you say, "Some truths are better told with a wink." They don't understand the words, not really, but they understand the warmth behind them. Tonight you sleep better. You dream of bread rising in an oven as big as the moon. You dream of fields bursting with wheat of wind that's warm, not cruel. You dream of your hands writing your name in the dirt and the earth answering back. And in the dream you are not surviving. You are living. Morning comes not with sunlight, but with the soft hiss of snow sliding from the roof and the creak of your bones as you rise. The fire is low, just a few glowing coals in a sea of ash. You stir it carefully, feed it the smallest twigs, then larger ones, coaxing it to life like a parent waking a reluctant child. Your breath fogs in front of your face, but you don't shiver anymore. The body gets used to the cold, or forgets what warmth ever felt like. Today is different. You've decided to do something that hasn't been done in weeks. You're going to fetch water from the village well. The stream, though closer, is frozen solid now. Only the most desperate chop through the ice, and even then, the water below is dark dangerous. But the well, though farther, is deep and cold enough to resist freezing completely if you're lucky. If not, you'll have to bring back snow and melt it. Again. That's a waste of firewood. Firewood you don't have. You pull on your cloak, wrap your hands in rough wool, and take the wooden bucket hanging from its hook. You glance at your wife. She nods once. No words are needed. She knows what this walk means. Risk, cold, but also water, clean water. The path to the well curves beyond the last row of cottages near the edge of the woods. You walk slowly, the snow crunching beneath your feet. Your breath is heavy in your chest. Trees loom on either side, bare, towering, brittle. Every gust of wind sends powdery flurries dancing through the air. You keep your eyes ahead. The well sits alone in a ring of stones half buried in snow. Its cover is iced over the rope, stiff from cold. You set your bucket down, pull the cover back with a grunt, and look down. Still water, thank God. You lower the rope. It creaks as it unwinds. You hear the bucket hit with a dull splash, then settle. You draw it back up, hand over hand, breath ragged in the cold. When the bucket finally surfaces, it's heavy. Clear water sloshes inside, steaming faintly in the air. It's beautiful. You carry it home slowly, both arms wrapped around the bucket to steady it. The walk feels longer on the return. Your muscles ache. Your knees wobble. But when you finally step through the door, your wife gasps with relief. She takes the bucket like it's a gift from heaven. And in a way it is. She boils a portion right away. Not for food, not even for tea, just for washing. The children crowd around, holding out their hands. One by one, you dip a rag and wipe their faces, their fingers behind their ears. They squirm and laugh. You laugh too. Clean water is a kind of luxury, a break from the endless sameness of dirt and ash and smoke. It lifts your spirits more than anything you've eaten in days. You even wash your own hands properly. Scrub beneath the nails along the wrists, through the cracks in your skin. You feel human again. For a moment at least. Later you check the traps again. You haven't caught anything in days. The animals are hibernating. The woods are too quiet. But today, tucked beneath a snow-covered log, you find something strange: hoofprints. Not deer, not wolf, pigs, wild ones. They rarely come this close to the village in winter. If they do, they're starving, desperate, but they're meat if you can catch them. Dangerous meat, but worth it. You rush back and tell Tom. He gathers a few others. You grab your spear, more a sharpened stick than a real weapon, and head out together, Chas's low hearts pounding. The forest feels different when you're hunting. Every sound is sharper. Every branch looks like it's hiding something. The prints twist through the snow, leading you deeper. Eventually you hear them. Grunts, rustling, the snort of something large. You signal the others. You spread out. Crouch low. Wait. Then a rush. A burst of motion. Snow flying. The pigs charge. It's chaos. You lunge. "Miss!" Tom shouts. Someone falls, but one pig slips in the snow, legs flailing. You all move at once, spear knife club. Quick, brutal. When it's done, you're panting. The snow around you is stained. But the pig is dead, and your hands are shaking not from cold, but from adrenaline. It's meat, real meat. You carry it home on a sled, muscles straining. It weighs more than anything you've lifted in weeks. Back in the village, people gather. Some cheer, others cry. The hunger has worn them so thin, they barely remember what feasting feels like. You butcher the pig carefully. Nothing wasted. Blood saved for pudding. Bones for broth. Fat rendered for cooking. Even the skin is boiled down to make glue or softened for shoes. Tonight, your family will eat well. You roast a portion over the hearth. The smell is overwhelming. It fills the hut, clings to your skin. The children dance in circles, unable to contain themselves. Your wife's eyes glisten. She hasn't said a word since you brought it home, but she doesn't have to. When the meat is ready, you carve it slowly. Share it with the neighbors. Trade a few pieces for extra grain, some salt, dried herbs. And when you eat, it's not just hunger that's being satisfied. It's something deeper. Something buried in your ribs and behind your eyes. A hunger for richness, for warmth, for joy. You remember what celebration feels like. You tell stories louder than usual. You laugh harder. You drink hot water like it's wine. And for the first time in weeks, you sleep deeply. No dreams, just rest. Because the body, even in its thinnest state, knows when it's safe. And tonight, it finally is. The snow hasn't let up since yesterday. It falls in soft, relentless layers, each flake indistinguishable from the last, erasing paths, burying memories, softening even the hardest edges of the world. Everything looks calm, but you've learned not to trust the quiet. Quiet can be a warning. Quiet can be what happens right before something breaks. You sit by the fire, sharpening the same blade you've sharpened for weeks. There's barely any edge left to maintain. But the motion soothes you. The rhythm is familiar, mechanical. Back and forth. Back and forth. It gives your hands something to do while your mind wanders. Dangerous thing, that wandering. Your youngest has taken ill. It started last night, a cough. Dry at first, but persistent. By morning it rattles in her chest like stones in a jar. Her forehead is warm. Her cheeks are too red. She doesn't cry. Just looks at you with glassy eyes like she knows what's happening, but doesn't want to scare you. You try not to show fear. You've seen what winter does to the weak. You've seen neighbors dig shallow graves into frozen ground. You've carried firewood past cottages that never opened their shutters again. But this is your child. You boil water, mix it with the last of the dried herbs the old woman gave you. Thyme, mint, a few flakes of dried linden blossom. You spoon it into her mouth, careful not to spill a drop. She sips it slowly, lips trembling. She asks if she'll get better. You say yes. You have to. You sit beside her, placing your hand on her back, feeling the tremors in each breath. You hum the song your wife always hums. You remember how your mother did this for you once, long ago, when you were small and the winter was just as bitter. Somehow you survived. So maybe she will too. But hope is fragile in this cold. Your wife keeps watch while you go out. You need more wood. It's snowing hard, but you don't care. The cold doesn't matter when someone you love is fading before your eyes. You trudge into the woods, pulling your sled behind you. You look for branches already fallen, too much time to cut anything fresh. You spot a dead tree leaning at an angle. Thin, frail, but dry. That's what you need. You swing your hatchet with fury, not precision. Every strike is a curse thrown at the sky. Why does winter test you like this? Why must the smallest among you suffer the most? When the tree falls, you drag its limbs to your sled, tie them down with rope, and haul it back through the snowdrifts. The sled jerks and snags, but you keep going. Muscles burn, heart pounds, breath clouds in the air. Back home, the fire is weak. You stoke it quickly, feed it until it roars again. The warmth wraps around your sick child like a blanket you couldn't afford. She stirs in her sleep. You sit beside her again. Hours pass. The wind picks up. It screams through the cracks in the door frame, kicks at the shutters. You stuff rags into the gaps, check the roof, check the hinges. The snowstorm has arrived in full now. You won't be leaving the hut for a day, maybe more. So you prepare. You move the bedding closer to the fire. You boil more water. You portion the food for the next 2 days. There's not much, some dried barley, 2 slices of pork, the last sliver of that glorious pig fat you rendered before. It will stretch. It has to. You tuck the children into their makeshift bed, layering every scrap of cloth you own on top of them. You lie behind your youngest, sharing your heat. You hold her small hand in your calloused one, and you whisper promises. Not because you're sure they'll come true, but because she needs to hear them. You tell her of spring again, of the green buds on trees, of lambs being born, of flowers and colors she's never seen. You promise her she'll feel the sun on her cheeks again, that she'll hear bees buzzing and drink fresh milk and eat berries still warm from the sun. She smiles faintly. Her eyes close. Her breathing steadies. Just a little. Your wife leans against you. She says nothing. Words have all been spent. Together you wait. The storm outside claws at your walls. Inside you hold fast. And in that fragile, flickering space between howling winds and fragile lungs, you find the one thing winter can't freeze, love. The storm doesn't stop for 2 full days. It howls and wails like something alive, clawing at the thatch, piling snow higher and higher around your home until the windows vanish beneath a wall of white. Light becomes a memory. The sun a rumor. Inside, you burn through the wood faster than you'd like. You use smaller pieces during the day, save the thick logs for night. You ration everything, heat, food, movement, even sound. You don't speak unless you have to. Not out of silence, but preservation. The air feels heavy, as if even breath has weight now. Your youngest is still sick. Her cough comes and goes. Some hours she sleeps peacefully, her brow cool, her lips pale but calm. Other hours, she burns. You watch her chest rise and fall with obsessive focus, afraid it might stop. You whisper prayers you forgot you remembered. You offer silent bargains to heaven, to saints, to the Virgin, to anyone who might hear. You tell her stories through cracked lips and a dry throat. You speak of a springtime feast where the entire village dances, where bread is warm and sweet, where meat is smoked and plentiful, and there's honey dripping from every table. She nods, eyes fluttering. She asks if there will be apples. You promise there will be, even if none grow near here, even if it's a lie. Because a warm lie can be kinder than a cold truth. You've never felt time like this. It doesn't pass. It drips. A slow melt of hours and minutes pooling into a shape you can't quite name. You sleep in short bursts, waking at every cough, every shift of wind. Your wife watches too, her face hollowed by worry and smoke. The storm finally stops on the third morning. The stillness is eerie, like the world has exhaled after holding its breath too long. You push the door open with your shoulder and step out into a blinding wall of white. The snow is waist-deep, maybe more. It stretches across the land like a shroud. Everything is quiet. Not peaceful, just exhausted. You climb onto the roof with a shovel and start clearing. The snow is light but deep, and your muscles protest every motion. Below you, smoke snakes up from other homes. Good. Others have made it too. You nod to the blacksmith who waves with a gloved hand, a sign that says, "Still here." That's enough. Back inside, your daughter sleeps quietly. Her color has returned faintly, her breath steadier. The fever's broken. You collapse beside the fire and weep, not loud, not for long, but enough. Enough to let it out. Enough to remember you're still human. You eat a meal together, all of you, like it might be the last warm meal for a while, though you don't say it. The last pork bone, some crushed barley, a splash of salt, all boiled until it's more memory than substance. But it fills your bellies and makes the air smell like something close to comfort. Afterward, you fix the shutters again. The wind stripped one nearly clean. You use old nails, scraps of rope, a patch of leather. It won't last forever, but it only needs to last the rest of winter. Your children help without being asked. Your eldest ties the knots. Your middle one holds the beams steady. They've learned quickly. The cold teaches fast. You check your supplies. Not much left. 4 logs, a cup of flour, half a jar of lard. No meat, a few dried herbs. It's enough for 3 days if you're careful. You begin to think about trade. You haven't left the village in weeks. Neither has anyone else. But you know there's another hamlet 5 miles south. If the paths are passable, if the woods are clear, you might make the trip and return with supplies. Maybe salt, maybe fish, maybe even news. You begin to ask around. Tom has a cousin who made the walk last year. He says the road is flat, but open. There's a fallen tree across part of it, but the path bends around. If the weather holds, you could go tomorrow. Leave at dawn. Return before dark. You decide you'll try. That night you prepare. You wrap the dried grain in linen. A spool of hand-spun yarn. A set of wooden buttons carved weeks ago, useful, rare. These might buy you something. You pack a cloak, a skin of water, your hatchet. You sleep early. Light. Restless. Before dawn you rise. The snow crunches underfoot like crushed bones. The sky is dark, but the stars are out, sharp cold, unmoving. You say goodbye to your wife with a look. She understands. She always has. The path south is narrow, flanked by trees. Your boots sink, but not too deep. The storm has settled. The wind is still. You walk. Each step is measured. You pass familiar landmarks, a broken fence post, a leaning oak, the stone where old Peter carved a cross after his wife died. All of it buried now, but still remembered. Halfway there, you stop to rest. Eat a piece of stale bread. Drink from the skin. Your breath clouds the air like smoke. Then you walk again. By midday, you reach the hamlet. It's quiet, smaller than yours, but alive. You see movement, smell bread, hear a baby cry. You smile. Life continues here too. You trade the yarn for dried fish, the buttons for 2 candles. The grain earns you a pouch of salt. Enough for a week, maybe more. Someone gives you a flask of cider, unasked, unexpected. You nod in thanks, eyes wet. By dusk, you return. Your village is waiting. Your children rush out shouting. Your wife's hands tremble as she lifts the fish. You place the salt on the table like a king's ransom. The cider you save for the next fire-lit evening. That night you eat again, and this time it tastes like triumph. The fish is already gone by morning. You stretched it over 2 meals, boiled the bones into a thin broth, and even saved the head to roast gently for what meat could still be scraped off. Nothing was wasted. Nothing ever is. Not in winter. Especially not something so rare, so filled with oil and flavor and memory. Your daughter is sitting up now. Her cheeks are pale but not flushed, and her breathing is quiet, steady. She coughs sometimes, but it's no longer the sharp, rattling gasp that kept you awake at night. You give her warm water with a few mint leaves floating in it. She calls it spring tea. You smile and nod. Let her believe that. Today, for the first time in days, there's sunlight. Weak and watery, but real. It slips through the edges of the shutters, draws pale stripes across the dirt floor. You open the door, and the light hits your face like a blessing. The snow still stretches for miles in every direction, but the sky above is clear. You decide to air out the hut. It's a rare ritual done only when the weather allows, and only when it's desperately needed. You open the shutters, prop the door, and let the cold light pour in. It feels like breaking a fever. The smoke, thick from days of burning damp wood, starts to thin. The stink of sweat, sickness, and wet wool lifts, chased out by the breeze. You scrub the floor with what water you can spare. Not a real cleaning, just wiping the worst of the mud and soot away. Your wife beats the bedding against the stone wall outside, snow falling in puffs with every hit. The children carry out straw, spreading it in the sun to dry. It will be scratchy when it comes back in, but less foul. It's the closest you've come to luxury in months. You look at your family, cheeks pink from cold hands moving quickly, hair catching the sun, and you feel something strange. Not warmth exactly, but lightness. As if the weight you've been carrying has shifted slightly. It's still there, but it's not crushing you. Afterward, you hang the bedding near the fire, where it will dry slowly over the day. The children curl up with what's left of the blanket humming. Your wife makes flat cakes from the last of the flour and some old lard. They smell faintly of salt and smoke. You eat them slowly, savoring the crisp edges. The afternoon is quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't scary, just calm. You sit near the hearth and begin working on something you haven't touched in weeks, a piece of wood you've been slowly carving into a figure. You don't even know what it will be yet. A saint, an animal, a symbol. You just carve, bit by bit, smoothing edges, scraping lines, letting your hands remember they can create. Your eldest watches. He asks if he can try. You hand him the knife and guide his hands. His cuts are clumsy but careful. He smiles. For a long time he says nothing. Then quietly, "When spring comes, can I carve a horse?" You nod. "Yes," you say. When spring comes, you don't say if, you say when. Outside, the snow starts to melt, not quickly, but just enough to turn the edges of the path into slush. A single drip falls from the roof, then another, then another. That night you light one of the candles you traded for. It's a small one. You only use half, but the glow is warm and golden, so different from the firelight that flickers red and orange. This light is steady, gentle. It casts shadows on the walls like old friends. You let your daughter hold it for a moment, her eyes wide as she watches the wax pool around the wick. She says the candle smells like honey. You don't smell anything, but you smile and agree. You tell stories again, this time about midsummer, about bonfires in the field and sweet mead sipped from wooden cups, about music and dancing and flower crowns, about laughter that echoes under the stars. The children lean forward, listening with hungry eyes. Even your wife closes her eyes, a faint smile at the edge of her mouth. You speak softly, but not slowly. You let the rhythm of your voice match the flicker of the flame. You speak like someone who believes what they're saying. And you do. Because even if you haven't seen a green leaf in months, even if your hands are still cracked and your boots still damp, you feel it. Winter is shifting. It's not over. Not yet. There will be more storms, more cold, more hunger. But the worst is behind you. You can feel it in the way the ice melts faster from the bucket, in the way your daughter laughs instead of coughs, in the way the snow groans and sighs beneath its own weight, ready to give in. You lie down to sleep, and for the first time in a long time, you don't immediately count firewood in your head. You don't run through meals or sickness or dread. You just close your eyes. And when you dream of thaw. Not in symbols, not in wishes. You dream of wet boots and muddy fields, of hauling water in heavy pails, of planting, of life. You wake to the sound of water. At first it's faint, just a steady drip near the window. Then another. Then more. It builds until it's everywhere, from the roof, from the corners, from the icicles, cracking and falling like tiny glass swords. The snow is weeping. The land is crying in relief. The melt has begun. You step outside, boots crunching into the wet crust. It's still cold, but not in that deep, cruel way. The wind no longer stings, it brushes. The sunlight is bright even if it has no heat. The sky is blue for once, not a wall of slate. You blink against it. Shade your eyes. Let yourself stand there for a minute and just breathe. The snow has begun to sink, to slump. You can see the shapes of things returning, the edge of a barrel, the curve of a cartwheel, a corner of stone poking through. The land so long wrapped in silence and softness is showing its bones again. Your goat bleats from her shelter. You rush over, worried she's taken ill or slipped on ice. But no, she's standing eyes wide, hungry. Her udder is full. You hadn't expected that so soon. She's giving milk again, a little, but enough. You call your wife, and together you milk her into a wooden pail. The warm liquid steams in the morning air. You don't wait. You dip a spoon and taste it. It's sharp, grassy, rich. It tastes like the end of something. You boil some, and stir it into your porridge. The children blink in confusion. They've forgotten what real milk tastes like. Your eldest laughs out loud. Your daughter hums. You all eat in reverent silence, savoring what feels like a feast. Later, you take the children on a walk not far, just past the boundary stones where the woods begin. It's still dangerous, but less so now. You stay alert, your axe slung over your shoulder. Not because of wolves, just habit. The path is slick with melt. Patches of brown earth peek through. Dead leaves flattened by snow stretch like sleepers waking after a long, dreamless night. You find a patch of moss and press your fingers into it. It's wet, soft, alive. The children run ahead, stumbling and shouting with joy. Their boots splash through shallow puddles. You don't stop them. You let them laugh. Let them get muddy. Let them remember that the world isn't always white and still and silent. You pause at a tree and place your palm against the bark. You feel it. The thrum beneath. It's not words, not sound, but it's there. The tree is waking up. When you return home, you see your neighbors standing outside too. Not talking, just standing. Breathing, looking. You nod at each other like survivors of a battle. You don't speak the words, but they're understood. We made it this far. Inside, your wife is sewing, not patching, not mending, sewing. She's begun shaping cloth into something new, a tunic perhaps, not because someone asked her to, because she wants to. Because spring needs clothes that winter doesn't. You help her. You hold the fabric. You cut thread. You sharpen the needle. You exist in the soft silence between survival and beginning. That evening, you sit by the hearth and check your stores again. They're low. Very low. But not gone. And now you begin to think in days again, not just meals. In weeks, you calculate how soon the ground will thaw, how soon you can plant. You inventory your seeds, wheat, barley, a few beans, turnips. Enough. Not much, but enough. Your wife places a hand on your shoulder and squeezes. No words, just weight, just warmth. Later, you stoke the fire and drink the last of the cider you'd saved. It's cold now, almost sour, but it's a celebration all the same. You let the children stay up longer than usual. They play with straw dolls. Your son draws in the soot on the hearthstones. Your daughter dances in circles, humming to herself. You watch them. And for the first time all winter, you allow yourself to think not just of surviving your children, but of raising them. Not just keeping them warm, but helping them grow. You tuck them in that night and promise them the first egg from the chicken when it starts to lay again. They smile in their sleep. You blow out the candle and lie down beside your wife, hand resting on your chest, breath calm. Outside, the meltwater drips on, a lullaby in drops, and beneath the earth, roots are already moving. The next morning, something extraordinary happens. You hear birds, not the wind moaning like an animal, not the creak of timber, not the sigh of snow collapsing under its own weight, but real living birdsong, sharp, bright, feathered notes, as if someone is plucking a harp high above the trees. You step outside, blinking into the cold light. A robin. Perched on the broken beam over the well, its red breast puffed, its eyes alert. It watches you with suspicion and sings again, not because it's warm yet, but because it knows it's becoming warm. You almost laugh. You want to call the children, tell the village, ring a bell, light a torch. But you don't. You just listen. Let it echo through your ribs like a forgotten prayer. The robin flutters off its wings, stirring the air like the brush of silk against your cheek. And that's how you know it's time. Time to prepare the fields, not to plant yet. The ground is still too hard, but you can walk them, look, plan, imagine. So you take your tools, spade, hoe, rake, all dulled from months of rest and rust, and lay them out to be cleaned. You run your fingers along the handles worn smooth by years of labor. These aren't just tools, they're promises. They speak of future harvests of bread of life. Your wife joins you. She's brought a bundle of dried lavender saved from last summer, tucked in cloth and stored high in the rafters. She crushes a little of it in her hand and sprinkles it on the hearth. The scent fills the air, sweet, sharp green, the smell of memory. That afternoon, you walk to your plot. The path is passable now, though still heavy with slush. Your boots sink, your knees ache, but you don't care. With each step, you reclaim a piece of land that winter tried to steal. When you reach the edge of your field, you stop and look. It's brown, dead-looking, flat, but you know better. You press your boot into the soil, not quite yielding yet, but softening. Beneath the surface, things are shifting. Tiny lives are waking. You kneel, dig your fingers into the dirt. Cold, yes, but not frozen. You draw a deep breath. Earth. Damp. Real. Behind you, your eldest is watching. You wave him over, hand him the rake. He hesitates, then steps forward and starts dragging the teeth through the ground, slow and steady, breaking the crust. You guide him, not too deep, not too fast. Let the land breathe. By the time the sun dips low, you've cleared half a row. It's not much, but it's a beginning. That night, you eat a stew made from little more than imagination. A piece of onion, a pinch of salt, some leftover barley, and a few pine needles steeped into broth. It smells better than it tastes, but it's hot. And as the steam rises, you talk about what you'll plant. Turnips first, your wife says. Barley, your son suggests. It grows fast. Beans, your daughter adds, though she's never liked them. You smile. All of it. You sit by the fire and draw a rough sketch in the dirt with your finger. Where the rows will go. Where the scarecrow will stand. Where the compost heap will rise. You imagine chickens pecking in the corners. Imagine green stalks rising, waving like tiny banners in the summer wind. And you realize hope has come back into the room, quietly, softly. But it's here. You go to bed with sore hands and a full heart. You sleep without dreams. The next morning you wake to sun. Real sun. It pours through the cracks in the shutters, golden and loud. You fling the door open like a man returning from exile. The snow is melting fast now, puddling at the base of trees, sliding in sheets off rooftops. Mud sucks at your boots. The air smells of wet bark and old leaves. You see movement near the woods, a deer thin but alive. It looks at you, its ears twitching, and then bounds off. No fear, just instinct. You take it as a good sign. Later, you and Tom help old Marta repair her roof. She made it through the winter, but barely. Her hands don't work like they used to. She offers you dried apples from her root cellar in thanks. You'd forgotten how sweet they were. You let your daughter eat the first one. She closes her eyes like she's tasting the stars. That evening, the village gathers, no reason. Just the first warm dusk in months. Children chase each other in the muddy square. Someone brings a fiddle. Someone else claps in rhythm. The notes are off-key, the rhythm awkward. But it's music, and you dance. Not for long, just enough. Your wife laughs as you spin her once, twice, her braid flying over her shoulder. Your son tries to copy your steps, fails, laughs harder. You see Tom swaying with his daughter on his back. Old Marta clapping slowly from a bench. This is not a festival, not yet. But it's what happens right before one. When you lie down that night, your arms ache from work, your face sore from smiling. And when you close your eyes, you don't think of the cold. You think of green. Spring doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in hesitant and shy like a stranger knocking lightly before stepping into a room that has forgotten the sound of welcome. But now that it's here, truly here, you feel it in everything. The mud. It's everywhere. Thick, clinging a nuisance and a promise. It sucks at your boots as you walk the paths between huts. It swells up in the yard where the children splash and fall and come home laughing brown from head to toe. You used to curse mud. Now you praise it. Because mud means thaw. Mud means the soil is waking. You've begun planting in earnest. The first barley seeds go into the ground, early, carefully scattered, pressed into furrows that you and your eldest dug together. Your hands were stiff from the cold, at first clumsy, but the soil felt warm to the touch compared to the ice you knew. You work slowly, methodically, whispering as you go, not a prayer exactly, but something close. A chant, a rhythm, seed press cover, seed press cover. Your wife plants onions. The children bury beans along the fence line. Even the goat seems inspired, nosing around the edges of the field like she wants to help. You don't mind. This is how it begins, not with celebration, but with repetition. Not with joy, but with motion. Each day starts earlier now. You rise with the light. The sun breaks across the hills in a golden wash, and for the first time in months, it carries real heat. You feel it on your face and blink at the unfamiliar sensation of squinting against brightness. You carry water in buckets now, not to melt, not to boil, but to pour gently onto the rows of dark, hopeful soil. And when you do, you swear the ground sighs. Not literally, but something in the air relaxes, as if the land itself is letting go. Your stores are almost gone now. The salted pork is just a rind. The grain barrel holds a thin layer at the bottom. A few sprigs of dried thyme still hang by the fire, but the smell is fading. And yet, you're not afraid, because for the first time in what feels like 100 years, more is coming, not less. The larder will fill again. The chickens are laying. The goat is producing. And in a few weeks, there will be leaves on trees and herbs in the hedgerow. You walk the village now with different eyes. The buildings still lean. The shutters still rattle. But there's laughter again. Children running, dogs barking. Someone's playing a bone flute in the distance, clumsy, tuneless, wonderful. You pass Tom, and he lifts his hand in greeting, sweat on his brow and dirt on his knees. He's repairing a fence. Behind him, rows of cabbages already nod in the wind. Feels like cheating, he jokes. Working without shivering. You chuckle. Almost forgot what that felt like. And it's true. You move faster now. Easier. Without the burden of layers and smoke and ice in your bones. You can breathe. You can sweat. You can laugh without coughing. One evening, the entire village gathers. Not for a feast, there's nothing to spare yet. But for a fire. A bonfire tall and crackling and bright. Old Marta brings a dried apple to share. Someone brews a weak ale from fermented roots. Your wife brings flatbread made with the last of the flour. There's no music until someone starts tapping a spoon on a pot, and suddenly there's rhythm. Then someone claps. Then someone sings. You don't know the song. Maybe no one does. It doesn't matter. The notes rise into the dark, curling with the smoke, carrying the sound of survival into the stars. Your daughter dances in the firelight, barefoot, spinning, alive. That night you lie beside your wife, your hand resting over hers. You whisper about tomorrow, about planting the rest of the beans, about checking the traps now that the forest is stirring, about maybe, just maybe, setting up a second pen for the goat kids. She doesn't answer. She's already asleep. You listen to her breathing steady and soft, and you realize you don't miss the silence of winter. It had its place, its lessons. It forced you to see what mattered, to hold tight, to endure. But this lightness, you'd nearly forgotten it was possible. When you close your eyes, you don't dream of snow anymore. You dream of shade under a tree, of grain ripening in the field, of hands stained green from picking herbs, of the long days of summer that lie ahead full of sweat and song and work and wonder. And in your dream, your hands are full, not with weight, but with harvest. The frost doesn't return, not really. A few mornings it clings to the edges of the field, a last stubborn breath of the season that nearly broke you. But by midday, it's always gone. The sun hangs longer now, warmer. It climbs higher in the sky and stays as if guarding what's left of you, coaxing life back into brittle things. You wake before dawn by habit, but not out of fear anymore. Out of purpose, out of rhythm. The fire doesn't need feeding as often. The air inside your hut holds warmth longer. Some mornings you even wake sweating a foreign, almost absurd sensation. You laugh when it happens. It feels like someone else's memory. The children are different now, too. Your youngest, once nearly lost to fever, now runs barefoot in the mud, her laugh as loud as the birds in the trees. Her cheeks are round again. She asks for stories not because she's scared, but because she wants to hear your voice. Your eldest sharpens the scythe without being asked. Your middle child can catch chickens faster than you ever could. They're growing. And so is the land. Your field, once white and hard as bone, is now furrowed and dark, each row neatly lined with sprouts, green whispers of barley and beans, the first signs of turnip tops peeking through the soil. Every morning you kneel beside them, not as a laborer, but as a worshiper. These are your resurrection. You patch your roof, oil the hinges on your door. You mend the goat pen and weave straw into a new mat for the threshold. These small acts feel monumental now. You are rebuilding not just shelter, but the shape of your life. One day your wife finds the old comb you carved for her long ago, back before the children, before the hunger, before the endless snow. She smooths her hair with it and smiles without speaking. You watch her and feel something inside you thaw that even the sun couldn't reach. In the evenings, you all sit outside, not huddled by the hearth, but in the open air. You eat on wooden plates. The meals are still simple pottage and boiled greens, maybe a little egg if the hens have been generous, but they taste like feasts now. Because you're not eating in fear. You're eating in gratitude. The village, too, has changed. Tom is building a new chicken coop with his sons. Marta's roof holds strong, and she sits near the chapel each morning, humming songs you haven't heard since childhood. The blacksmith is fixing plows again, not just hinges and broken blades. There's talk of a wedding come summer. 2 young hearts, who barely made it through the freeze but now walk hand in hand through the fields. You smile when you see them. You remember being that young. You feel for a moment that you might be again. You walk the paths now with shoulders squared, not hunched against the cold. You greet others with your voice, not just your eyes. And sometimes when you're alone, you sing. Nothing complex. Just a line or two from the songs your mother taught you. The same ones your daughter hums now in her sleep. One morning your goat gives birth. Twin kids. Tiny, unsteady, blinking against the light. You name them Spring and Mercy. Your wife shakes her head at the names but says nothing. She understands. Later that day, you finally take the carving from the shelf, the one you worked on all winter, without knowing what it was. You finish it. Smooth the edges. Shape the form. It's not a saint or a symbol. It's a mother and child curled together, wrapped in a blanket of fire. You place it above the hearth. Not as a warning, but as a remembrance. Because winter is part of you now. Its cold still lingers in your bones, in the cracks of the wood, in the creak of the shutters on windy nights. But it no longer owns you. It taught you hunger, yes, but also patience. It taught you silence, yes, but also listening. It took so much, but it gave back something too. It gave you the knowledge that you can endure, that love can survive in the cold, that even the smallest fire, if fed, can keep death at bay. You sit outside one final time before bed, looking at the stars. Not through smoke or shutter, but beneath them. The night is gentle now. You don't flinch when the wind touches your cheek. You welcome it, and you whisper into the dark, just once we made it. No one answers. But somewhere nearby, a robin sings again, and that's answer enough. So now, you can close your eyes. You've been through the longest winter. You've walked through hunger, through silence, through snow so deep it erased the sky. You've kept your fire alive with fingers cracked and bleeding. You've held your family close when breath was shallow and nights were long. But you survived. You, the medieval peasant, unsung, unnamed, uncelebrated, are still here. You gathered every splinter of warmth and guarded it like treasure. You bartered, you carried, you carved. You suffered, and still you sang. And in the end, you didn't just make it through. You rebuilt. You replanted. You remembered what joy feels like. So let that linger in your breath now as the fire dies low. Let your heartbeat settle into the rhythm of the earth softening. Let your mind float over frozen fields and melting snow, over the first green shoots and the quiet laughter around a fire. It's safe now. You're wrapped in wool. There's soup on the fire. The shutters are closed against the breeze. And somewhere beyond this world of frost and flame, spring is already blooming, waiting just outside your dreams. So rest now. The cold can't touch you here. The story is over, and you're still warm.